are removed after overseeing most of Trump's crackdowns in Democratic-led Republican president who faces mounting political pressure to soften his administration's aggressive deportation tactics. Some advisors have expressed concerns that national outrage over Saturday's killing of 37-year-old Alex Pretty and the administration's immediate defense of the agents who shot him could derail Trump's border immigration agenda. Meanwhile, Leavitt says the killing by a federal immigration officer of Minneapolis protester Alex Pretty occurred as a result of a deliberate and hostile resistance by Democrat leaders. She also put distance between Trump and assassin rhetoric on Pretty. Also, we could see that a man wearing a black jacket was tackled to the ground after spraying an unknown substance on U.S. Rep. Ilhan Omar at a town hall where she hosted a Minneapolis press meeting. In the meantime, the U.S. Immigration Agency, whose offices have been involved in two fatal shootings in Minneapolis, has said it is sending agents to help support American security operations during the Winter Olympics, which start in Italy on 6th February. Confirmation of the agency's role came from the Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE after reports prompted alarm and anger in Italy. An ICE spokesperson stressed that all security operations remained under Italian authority. Meanwhile, U.S. Embassy sources in Rome had already explained to Italian media that various federal agencies had worked at previous games in the past, although it was not clear if the customs and enforcement agencies had itself taken part. The agency's statement on Tuesday explained that ICE Homeland Security Investigations is supporting the U.S. Department of State Diplomatic Security Service and host nation to vet and mitigate risks from transnational criminal organizations. But there is a staying opposition brewing in Italy after reports that the U.S. will be sending its immigration and customs enforcement agents to support security operations of its U.S. delegate at the 2026 Milano Cortina Winter Olympics. Also, President Donald Trump says he is increasing tariffs on South Korean goods because the country's National Assembly has yet to approve the trade framework affirmed in October. Trump said on social media that import taxes could be raised on autos, lumber, and pharmaceutical drugs from South Korea, with the rate on other goods going from 15% to 25%. President Donald Trump says he is increasing tariffs on South Korean goods because the country's National Assembly is yet to approve the trade other goods going from 15% to 25%. Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney addressed Trump's recent comment emphasizing Canada's proactive trade diversification, Arctic security initiative, and military contributions to NATO. He highlighted the upcoming USMCA review and reaffirmed Canada's commitment to international partnerships and national defense. Carney also underscored Canada's global trade expansion and domestic preparedness. The Prime Minister also said he did not walk back the sentiment in his World Economic Forum speech that urged countries to recognize the rupture in the global order in a call with U.S. President Donald Trump after U.S. Secretary Scott Bessent said he did. Away from that, NATO boss Mark Rutte has dismissed calls by some leading European politicians for a separate European army, prompted by doubt over Donald Trump's commitment to the continent's security that were heightened by tensions over Greenland. Rutte told advocates of a European force separate from the US-led NATO alliance to keep dreaming, and said Russian President Vladimir Putin would love the idea as it will stretch Europe's armies and make them weaker. Also speaking to the European Parliament in Brussels, Ruth said European nations should continue to step up to take more responsibility for their own security, as Trump has demanded, but within the transatlantic alliance. Meanwhile, Europe is no longer Washington's primary center of gravity, and the shift is structural, not temporary. This was said by European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas as European leaders grappled with how to adjust to U.S. President Donald Trump's approach to the transatlantic relationship. Speaking at the European Defense Agency's annual conference, she added that while the EU still seeks strong transatlantic ties and the United States will remain an ally, Europe must adapt to new realities, and NATO needs to become more European to maintain its strength. In a separate development, India and the European Union struck a long-delayed deal that would slash tariffs on most goods, aiming to boost two-way trade and reduce reliance on the United States amid growing global trade tensions. The EU said that the deal is expected to double EU's export to India by 2032 by eliminating or reducing tariff in 96.6% of traded goods by value, and will lead to savings of €4 billion in duties for European companies. India's Trade Ministry said in a statement that the EU will cut tariffs on 99.5% of goods imported from India over 7 years, with tariff to be cut to zero on Indian marine goods, leather and textile products, chemicals, rubber, base metals, germs and jewelries. India and EU said agriculture-related items like soya, beef, sugar, rice and dairy have been kept out of the preview of the trade deal. Away from that, Transport Minister Oscar Puente has said that Spain will pay out €20 million, that is $24 million, in compensation to the victims of last week's high-speed train crash that killed 45 people and left more than 150 injured. The nation is still reeling from the January 18 disaster in Adamus near the southern city of Cordoba that caused one of the highest death tolls from a train crash in recent European history and the highest in Spain since 2013. The families of those killed will receive €216,000 each within no more than 3 months, made up of €72 in tax-exempt and from the government, and an advance insurance payment of €72,000. Another €72,000 could be paid from passengers' mandatory travel insurance. We move now to Britain, where Keir Starmer began the first visit to China by a British Prime Minister since 2018 today, seeking to strengthen political and business ties with Beijing as relations between Western countries and the US became more volatile. Starmer, whose approach to China has been criticized by some British and US politicians, said Britain must remain vigilant about potential security threats, but could not afford to ignore the opportunities presented by the world's second largest economy. Traveling with a delegation of more than 50 business leaders, Starmer met with President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Qiang on Thursday before traveling to Shanghai on Friday for talks with local executives. In the meantime, China's state media has said that China's defense minister Dong Ju told his Russian counterpart that Beijing was willing to enhance strategic coordination with Moscow and jointly improve their capacity to respond to threats and challenges. Reports said that Dong said in a video call with Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belonzo that they are willing to work with Russia to earnestly implement the important consensus reached by the two heads of state, strengthen strategic coordination, enrich the substance of cooperation, and improve exchange mechanism. In South Korea, a South Korean court sentenced former First Lady Kim Hee to 20 months in jail on Wednesday for accepting Chanel bags and a diamond pendant from Unification Church officials in return for providing political favors. Reports say the wife of ex-president Yoon Suk-yeol, who was ousted from office last year, was cleared on all the charges of stock price manipulation and violating the Political Funds Act. Prosecutors will appeal against the not guilty verdict. Meanwhile, the ruling comes amid a series of trials stemming from investigations into Yoon's brief imposition of martial law in 2024 and related scandals involving the once powerful couple. However, Kim has denied all the charges, and a lawyer said the team would review the ruling by Seoul Central District Court and decide whether to appeal the bribery conviction. In a sad development, all 6 people on board a private jet are thought to have died after aircraft crashed in a snowstorm while taking off from Bangor International Airport in the U.S. state of Maine. An initial report by the Federal Aviation Administration (FAA) had said 7 people were killed and 1 was seriously injured in a crash on Sunday. In a later statement, Bangor Airport said no one on the Bombardier Challenger 600 was transported to the hospital, and all on the flight were presumed to be deceased. The incident came as a winter snow barreled across a large swath of the U.S. Pilot had reportedly been struggling with visibility at the airport before the crash. Bangor Airport said that the private jet went down at about 7:45 local time on Sunday, and that is 12:45 a.m. Monday. We'll take a quick break right now. When we return, the spotlight will be on the Middle East and Africa. Please stay tuned. Many thanks for staying tuned. This is Worldview on Spectrum TV. We turn the spotlight to the Middle East region, where Britain, the United States, France and Germany have welcomed the 15-day extension of the ceasefire between the Syrian government and Kurdish forces and urged all parties to strictly adhere to the agreement. The 4 nations said in a joint statement that they call upon all parties to strictly adhere to the ceasefire and to exercise their utmost restraint, and also urge all external parties to join U.S. in pursuit of peace and de-escalation of violence, adding that all parties should swiftly agree and stay permanently to the ceasefire deal. We moved out to Israel, where the remains of the last Israeli captive recovered from the Gaza Strip is buried today in a funeral that will help Israel turn the page after one of the most traumatic periods in its history. Ran Ville, an off-duty police officer, was killed fighting militant during the October 7, 2023 Hamas attack on southern Israel. He was then seized and taken back into Gaza by the Islamic Jihad militant group. Israeli officials say Ran was among about 250 people abducted during the attack, which killed around 1,200 people, according to Israeli tallies, and set off the war in Gaza, in which Palestinian health authorities say Israel killed more than 71,000 Palestinians. Many of the hostages were released during 2 short ceasefire, but dozens died in captivity. Under the terms of an October deal brokered by U.S. President Donald Trump, Hamas and other groups agreed to return the remaining hostages alive or dead in exchange for the release of Palestinian prisoners. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Tuesday that Israel planned a limited reopening of Gaza's border crossing with Egypt in both directions, allowing Palestinians to enter and leave the territory after nearly 2 years of closure. So in the Middle East, Turkey's foreign minister today urged the U.S. to resolve its disputes with Iran one by one instead of a thorough, sweeping deal, saying this will avoid humiliating Iranian officials, and added that Tehran was ready for talks on its nuclear program. U.S. President Donald Trump said last week that Washington had an armada heading towards Iran, but hoped he would not have to use it, as he renewed warnings to Tehran against killing protesters or restarting its nuclear program. Tehran brutally cracked down on anti-government protests earlier this month, leading to the death and arrest of thousands of people. Officials blamed the unrest on armed terrorists and rioters linked to Iran's foes, the United States and Israel. Rights groups described the protests as the biggest since the 1979 revolution. In the meantime, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said he had not been in contact with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff in recent days or requesting negotiations, state media reported today. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Tuesday another armada is floating towards Iran and that he hopes Tehran would make a deal with Washington. The U.S. deployed additional military assets in the Gulf following nationwide protests in Iran, which led to the country's bloodiest crackdown since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Meanwhile, Iran Foreign Minister Araghchi has said that no contact between him and Witkoff in recent days and no request for negotiations were made. Araghchi told state media, adding that various intermediaries were holding consultations and were in contact with Tehran. He further reiterated that their stance is clear: negotiations don't go along with threat, and talks can only take place when there are no longer menace and excessive demands. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian told Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman on Tuesday that Tehran welcomes any process within the framework of international law that prevents war. Meanwhile, it is reported that Iran executed a man today who was accused of spying for Israel. The Iranian judiciary media outlet reported naming him as Hadi Midraza Sabat. Entangled in a decades-long shadow war with Israel, Iran has executed many people it is accused of having links with Israeli intelligence service and facilitating its operation in the country. In Africa, Rwanda has filed an arbitration case against Britain over a cancelled asylum deal that Prime Minister Keir Starmer scrapped in 2024, the government of the East African nation said. Under the scheme signed before Starmer took office, Britain agreed to pay Rwanda to take in migrants who had arrived illegally in Britain. It only sent 4 persons voluntarily to Rwanda, as the plan was stalled by legal challenges. Rwanda has submitted a notice to the Hague-based Permanent Court of Arbitration, arguing that Britain has breached the financial arrangement of the Migration Partnership. Its government said this in a statement on X. It added that Britain had asked it in 2024 to forego 2 payments of £50 million due in April 2025 and April 2026 in anticipation of the formal termination of the treaty underlining the deal. Lastly, on Worldview Today, President Bola Tinubu and his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan have agreed to pursue a $5 billion trade volume between Nigeria and Turkey as both countries sign 9 bilateral agreements. Erdogan disclosed this at a joint press briefing with Tinubu during the Nigerian leader's ongoing state visit to Ankara, the Turkish capital. The special advisor to the President on Information Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, who revealed details of the agreement in a statement, said the Turkish leader noted that the establishment of a joint economic and trade committee could create opportunities for expanding Turkish investment in Nigeria to meet the target. He commended Tinubu's reforms in the energy sector, expressing optimism that cooperation between Turkish Petroleum Corporation and Nigeria's counterparts would yield positive results. On security, the Turkish president pledged support for Nigeria's fight against terrorism, offering to share his country's experience in tackling insurgency. Tinubu, in his remarks, commended Erdogan's willingness to collaborate on promoting freedom, stability, and prosperity globally. And with that, we wrap up our package for you on Worldview today. To ensure to follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website at spectrumtvlive.ng. You have been watching Worldview on Spectrum TV. I am Imedio James. Thank you for watching.